Hey, everybody. As you know, I have been talking about recent legislation and issues surrounding the charges that Snowden, Assange, and others are facing now under the Espionage Act. So we went back and looked through our footage and pulled some clips from a conversation that I had with Daniel Ellsberg last year that I wanted to share with you. As you might know, Daniel Ellsberg was the brave whistleblower who came forward and published with the Washington Post the Pentagon Papers that exposed lies that our government was telling the American people about the Vietnam War. The consequence that he faced was being charged under the Espionage Act of 1917 and potentially facing 135 years in prison. This conversation with Daniel Ellsberg will allow you to hear directly from him what he went through, and also as he speaks to the very specific kinds of reforms that we need to make sure that our whistleblowers who bravely come forward in the public interest are able to have their fair day in court. Mr. Ellsberg, how are you? Yes, I would love to give you a hug.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you very much. You came in arms wide open, so I took the invitation.
I was the first person charged under the charges he's now facing. But I was charged as a source, and there wasn't one for 10 years after that. And then 9, and then one other. There were 3 cases. And then 9 under Obama. I don't know if you know this. 3 times as many as all previous presidents together. And no one has ever really explained that.
Wow.
How that came about. He had a zealous prosecutor on or somebody. They were all either plea bargains or one in court. It's never gone to the Supreme Court. Anyway, they were sources like me. And they were using an Espionage Act, which was designed for spies and has no provision in it for pleading any public interest.
Right.
And you can't argue in court. I wasn't allowed to speak in court to answer the question. I spoke for 4.5 days, but I wasn't allowed to answer the question, why did you copy the Pentagon Papers?
Wow.
Irrelevant.
And that would be central. I mean, that would be answering that question is central to everything, though.
Of course. So I had delayed talking.
They said that was irrelevant.
The prosecutor said, then the judge upheld it. So my lawyer, who was a big constitutional lawyer, said, Your Honor, I've never heard of a case where the defendant was not allowed to tell the jury why he did what he did.
Right.
And Judge Burns said, well, you're hearing one now. And that's been true of every case since then. So you can't get a fair trial as a whistleblower. If you're a spy, the motives are not very, it can help in the sentencing maybe, but not in the trial. But for a whistleblower, you can't say anything about what the impact has been, whether there was harm, what you wanted to accomplish, whether there was any harm and whatnot. But it was never meant to be an official Secrets Act, a British type official Secrets Act. And in fact, they said at the time, in 1917, when they passed this, we don't want an official Secrets Act. The question was, could you use it against a source like me? Well, it never had been done since 1917. So it was an experiment with me. And I was facing 115 years. He's facing 175 now. Inflation, that's how they left it. But the new thing about this is that it's the first time a journalist has been tried on this, defended, and that makes it into a full British official Secrets Act.
Right.
And so it's not even just that that he can't argue motive effectively. As a journalist, he should not be. It's always been clear that this was going too far.
Right.
It's been true for years that the sources should not, to papers, like myself, should not be tried under the Espionage Act where they can't plead public interest at all.
Right.
And but the newspapers never got behind this very much because they said, well, the sources, but it's not us. They're not going after us.
Exactly. They don't have skin in the game.
Now they're going after them. I told Abe Rosenthal all the times, back in 1971, if I'm convicted, I'm not going to be the last.
That's right.
Actually, what I asked him was, what's your policy on supporting the cases of sources? Okay. He said, well, you remember the name Abe Rosenthal at all? He was the editor of the New York Times at the time. He said, I'm not sure we have a policy. And I said, I'm sure you don't. because you've never had a source prosecuted before. And if I lose this case, well, anyway, they did nothing. I think they treat sources like snitches, like police informants.